You are listening to Story on the Midnight Story Bureau YouTube channel. The following is the Reverend Insanity series. Episode 10. Chapter 91. Fang Yuan. We are very worried about you. After a sleepless night, as soon as dawn broke, Fang Yuan went out and splurged on supplies. The rented room was very simple, with old, worn-out blankets and mattresses. Staying there for a long time would inevitably lead to illness due to the cold air seeping in. Although Fang Yuan had already spent more than half of his current amount of spirit stones, he still needed to buy essential daily necessities. These things couldn't be skimped on. First, he needed extra blankets and mattresses. He needed at least 2 more to add cotton padding to the blankets. Besides that, he needed bedsheets and a mattress. He also needed to buy another lamp to provide sufficient light, and at least 2 bottles of lamp oil. Fang Yuan thought for a moment. Although the rented room wasn't large, he could still fit a small table and chair, so he decided to buy those. Most importantly, he needed a fireplace. In the freezing winter, without a fireplace to warm himself, he would freeze to death in the middle of the night. Besides these things, Fang also had to buy some dried food and prepare some water. Enough for his needs for 7 days. The winter sun slowly rose, casting a lazy light. Gu Yueju San and the 4 Gu masters stood at the north gate of the mountain stronghold, already impatiently waiting. It's unusual, we clearly agreed on this place and time last night. But now, an hour has passed, and this Fang Yuan hasn't appeared yet, a female team member said. Don't worry, don't get impatient, wait a little longer, it's inevitable that newcomers are late. Ju San smiled. He was worried about not finding an opportunity to put Fang Yuan in his place. But unexpectedly, the next day he had proactively presented himself. We've waited and waited, and we even have to make the team leader wait for him to follow us. This brat is too arrogant. Gu Yue Kong Jing grumbled, his tone full of resentment. But after half an hour, Fang Yuan was still nowhere to be seen. Jia San's face was shrouded in a hazy mist. This brat, isn't he mistaken about the location? We clearly said we'd meet at the north gate. Kong Jing doubted. I'll wait here, you guys go look outside the gate, Jia San ordered, and the 3 team members had no choice but to comply. After a while, they returned to Jia San without finding anything. Could this Fang Yuan have seen through our plan and left the team? One of the female Gu masters said. You think he's too profound. Even if he's the top scorer in the year-end assessment, he's still just a young newcomer. Who could he possibly fool here at that age? Kong Jing retorted, pouting. Jia San's face darkened. Whether he sees through it or not isn't important. The important thing is to find him. Right now, my only worry is that he'll abandon us and start his 2nd rank breakthrough alone. Once he reaches the 2nd rank, he can voluntarily skip a mission and directly request the Internal Affairs Hall to let him live separately. Find him for me, no matter how big the mountain stronghold is. No matter how many rooms there are, we must find him. We absolutely cannot let him have time to break through to the 2nd rank. Yes. In the room, Fang Yuan sat cross-legged on the bed. In front of him were several open money bags, containing all his primeval stones. There aren't many primeval stones left. Fang Yuan sighed, his expression heavy. Primeval stones are the fundamental driving force for Gu masters to advance. If there is a shortage of primeval stones, the increase in true essence can only rely on self-restoration, and the speed of cultivation will slow down considerably. Furthermore, without food, the Gu worms would starve to death. Fang Yuan's Gu stones, which once exceeded 1,000 during his time in the academy, couldn't withstand the daily depletion. His fellow Gu masters only had 3 Gu worms so far. Yet, after achieving 1st place in the year-end examination, Fang Yuan entered the Gu chamber and was given a free choice of a little light Gu. He absolutely had to choose it. Ignoring it would arouse suspicion. And since then, the number of goo worms in his possession had reached over 7. Needless to say, this was a heavy economic burden. If this continues, I can only last 2 months. Therefore, I must reclaim the inheritance. That's the best economic support. But to reclaim the inheritance, the first step is to advance to the second rank. Fang Yuan's eyes darkened. For Fang Yuan, advancing to the second rank was not easy. For a goo master, resources are the most important factor, and innate talent is the second. Poor talent makes cultivation even more difficult, and future achievements lower. From lowest to highest, talent is divided into Ding, Bing, Yi, and Jia. But this is only a rough classification. In reality, each talent type has its own detailed classification standards. Taking Bing as an example, the maximum amount of true essence stored in the aperture is at least 4%. And at most 5-9%. Fang Yuan's actual true essence is only 4% within the Bing talent category. He is considered below average. Breaking through to the second transformation requires at least 5.5% of dark green true essence. For A-grade and B-grade goo masters, this is just an insignificant hurdle. For C-grade goo masters, 5.5%, 5.6%, up to 5.9%, is easily overcome. Therefore, C-grade goo masters usually only need to accumulate a certain amount of essence to mostly advance to the second transformation, with only a very few able to reach the third transformation. Thus, once aptitude is measured, one can also predict the achievements of most people in their lifetime. Fang Yuan's indifference is understandable given the biased views of others. Although my aptitude for the B-type is only 4/10. It's not impossible to break through the glass barrier, break it down and rebuild. Reaching the second transformation, the most thorough method is to find a goo worm that can improve my aptitude. A secondary method is to obtain auxiliary goo worms of the same type as the wine worm, which can also help goo masters break through obstacles. An even more inferior method is to get the help of a master. But using different kinds of true essence has significant side effects, unless I can find the pure water goo later to cleanse this different kind of aura. Fang Yuan pondered this while reaching into his pocket to take out a primeval stone, stroking its smooth surface with his hand. However, none of the methods mentioned above are feasible for me right now. I don't have a master to assist me, and even if I did, I wouldn't entrust my vulnerable points like the wine worm to someone else. Goo worms like the wine worm are extremely rare. I'm already very lucky to have obtained one. As for goo worms that enhance aptitude, I obtained one in my previous life, which allowed me to cultivate to the 6th stage. I also know where to obtain them, but with my current cultivation level, I'm completely inaccessible. Even if I obtained one, I wouldn't be able to keep it, or even use it. But besides these methods, there's one more foolish approach, using primeval stones to boost my cultivation. Thinking of this, Fang Yuan's eyes gleamed, and he gripped the primeval stones tightly. For a goo worm cultivator, resources are the most important, and aptitude is second. If aptitude is insufficient, resources can compensate to a certain extent. My true essence is only at most 4/10 of its full power. It won't be enough to break through the acupoint wall. But if I absorb true essence while simultaneously breaking through, and persevere for a period of time, at most 4 or 5 days, I can shatter the acupoint wall. Having made up his mind long ago, Fang Yuan resolutely closed his eyes, his consciousness sinking into the acupoint. The bronze origin sea surged again, the tidal waves relentlessly crashing against the crystal acupoint wall. However, at this moment, to prevent the true essence from being depleted too quickly and lacking the strength to maintain the crack and allow the acupoint wall to recover, Fang Yuan deliberately slowed down the intensity of the impact. In this way, the rate of depletion of the bronze true essence was greatly reduced. But the rate of cracking on the glass membrane also slowed down accordingly. However, Fang Yuan was still absorbing the natural true essence within the origin stones. The rate of true essence recovery was slightly faster than the rate of cracking on the glass membrane. This prolonged process, although extremely slow and not as effective as fully exerting true essence, would ultimately yield the desired success. However, this meant that, except for essential eating and excretion, Fang Yuan had to cultivate continuously. The more time wasted, the more origin stones were wasted, rendering all efforts futile. At most, he could only stop for a quarter of an hour, without further impact from true essence. The glass membrane would recover. Therefore, once the attack begins, one must persevere until success is achieved, absolutely without interruption. If the attack is stopped for too long, it must be repeated. Fang Yuan didn't have enough primeval stones to repeat the process several times. During cultivation, time passed quickly. In the blink of an eye, the sun had set behind the mountain peaks. Under the twilight, Ju San's face was cold and frosty, his voice low. "We've searched all day and still haven't found him." "No, sir." Kong Jing wiped the cold sweat from his forehead. "That brat didn't rent the room we recommended. We don't know where he's gone." "HMPH, we'll continue searching tomorrow. We must find him. Remember to search every hotel. I don't believe that such a large mountain stronghold will leave traces wherever he goes." Ju San waved his sleeve and left. By noon the second day, their search finally yielded results. An excited female Gu master ran up to Ju San and reported, "We've found it. We've found it. Fang Yuan is in a dilapidated bamboo building, renting a room on the second floor. According to the landlord's description, it must be him. HMPH, just as I expected. He's indeed hiding, focusing all his efforts on breaking through to the second rank." Ju San chuckled sinisterly. "Let's go to his room and pay him a visit. Ask him a few questions. He's a newcomer, after all. We have to show him some concern." Ha ha ha. The whole group chuckled together. The four immediately went to Fang Yuan's residence. A piece of bamboo paper was pasted above the door. Jia San took down the bamboo slip and opened it. On the bamboo slip was Fang Yuan's handwriting, essentially stating that he wanted to go into seclusion for a few days, not leaving the room, and focus all his efforts on breaking through to the second transformation. If outsiders saw it, they shouldn't disturb him. If Jia San saw it, consider it a request for permission. Jia San snorted coldly and threw the bamboo slip away. How could he let you easily break through to the second transformation like that? He chuckled coldly and knocked on the door. Thump, thump, thump. Asterisk, Fang Yuan, are you there? He deliberately spoke loudly. We've come to visit you. You really should have told us beforehand about this seclusion. There was no reply from inside. Thump, thump, thump. Jia San knocked harder. Brother Fang Yuan, I'm not blaming you. You're acting on your own initiative. Since you joined the team, you should act according to orders. Obey the group, and work together. We've been assigned the task of hunting deer, and this is specifically for your training. If you don't mind, you can stop for now. We can complete this mission first, and then we can cultivate. Zhao San narrowed his eyes. His expression gloomy, but his voice was very gentle. There was still no reply from the room. Zhao San suddenly raised his voice. Brother Fang Yuan, why aren't you answering me? Are you all right? Breaking through to the second stage isn't that simple. You could learn some experience from us first. Fang Yuan, can you hear me? Something's wrong. Have you fainted? Zhao San spoke to himself, a cold smile on his face, but his voice was full of worried concern. The other three team members stood watching from the side. Kong Jing interjected at the right moment. Team leader, maybe you're right. Fang Yuan hasn't replied for half a day. Let's go in and save him. Fang Yuan, open the door quickly. You haven't said a word. It's making us very worried. If you don't open the door, we'll break it down. You're a newcomer to our team. We can't just stand by and watch you fall into danger. Ju San shouted loudly. But there was still no response from inside the room. Ju San slightly smirked, then turned and gestured to Kong Jing. Kong Jing understood, raised his foot, and kicked hard. Chapter 92, The Distant Future Within Sight. Fang Yuan, hold on, we're here to help you. After shouting, Ju San quickly entered the room, his face full of concern. But then, he froze in place. There was no one in the room. Fang Yuan wasn't there. The four of them fell silent for a while. How could this be? Where is he? Ju San suddenly broke the silence, both embarrassed and angry. He had been putting on a show outside the door for half the day, acting out a one-act comedy of affection. Yet Fang Yuan wasn't in the room. The other three exchanged glances, also surprised by the outcome. This is a bit strange. If Fang Yuan isn't here, why would he have put that note on the door? Kong Jing cautiously said. Hurry up and call the landlord. Ju San kicked the door open. You're looking for me, HMPH. I'm looking for you. You made a racket upstairs and even smashed my door. Young man, you certainly have some nerve. The landlord was an old man, but his tone was very assertive. Anyone who could rent out spare rooms in the ancient Moon Mountain village was naturally a Gu master. The power and status of Gu masters completely overshadowed ordinary people. Ordinary people absolutely dared not engage in this kind of business. In fact, they didn't own any real estate. All the real estate in the mountain village belonged to the ancient Moon tribe. The ordinary people here were all servants and serfs. Senior, we're looking for a young man. He's a member of our group. Facing the landlord, Ju San had to restrain his temper. Although an old Gu master like this landlord was old and no longer venturing outside, they still had networks and connections. Even though they had retreated to the background, they still possessed considerable influence. Without a few trump cards and connections, how could one dare to trade? This world is not a time of peace. Violence and robbery are rampant everywhere. The landlord shook his head, his voice dry. I don't care about the whereabouts of the guest. But I know you kicked down my door. You must compensate. Ha ha, this is damage caused by us. Compensation is our duty. Jia San chuckled dryly, suppressing his anger but still reluctantly compensating with raw stones, even giving a little more than necessary. The landlord's expression immediately softened. If the young man who rented this room is the one you're looking for, then he hasn't returned for a day. He paid a month's rent, bought a lot of things yesterday morning, and asked me where to buy cheap coal. I told him there was no need to buy any. There's an open pit coal mine east of the mountain village where he could dig directly. He thanked me and left, and hasn't returned since. So that's it. Ju San looked at the room's furnishings. Indeed, the bedding on the bed was brand new. There was a square table and chairs, and the rest were old, used items, which looked quite sturdy. The stove was empty. There was indeed no coal. Ju San sighed, immediately feeling relieved. It seems Fang Yuan might have been delayed by going to dig coal. Never mind, we'll come back tomorrow. He led the way out of the room. But on the third day, Fang Yuan still hadn't appeared. The four of them stood in the room, somewhat hesitant. Mining coal doesn't usually take that much time. Fang Yuan wanted to go into seclusion, perhaps wanting to dig a large amount at once. But the necessary time has long passed. Could something unexpected have happened during his digging? Kong Jing speculated. Ju San nodded slightly, pointing to the bedding and heater Fang Yuan had bought. This kid is very stingy. He gave away one spirit stone for a month's worth of supplies. And bought so many things. Even deliberately putting up a sign on the door. He must have wanted to go into seclusion here. Unfortunately, he's been struck by bad luck in the past few days. Because the wolf den has expanded, wild beasts around the mountain stronghold have been appearing more frequently. He might have encountered some kind of wild beast. Team leader, you have a brilliant idea, the two female team members said in unison. Flattering him. Jia San threw his head back and laughed loudly. Ha ha ha. I was still worried about not finding a way to discipline him. Although we have a mission to hunt deer, we don't need to rush out. If we happen to run into this brat in the wilderness, we can't just stand by and watch him die. Can we? Ha ha ha. The other 3 team members couldn't help but chuckle. The 4th day. Inside the aperture, wave after wave of dark green tides continuously surged, crashing against the glass-like walls of the aperture, endlessly. The semi-transparent white glass membrane was covered with cracks, crisscrossing everywhere. This was the result of Fang Yuan's efforts over 3 days and 3 nights. Without sleep or rest, if he couldn't bear it anymore, he would simply quickly eat a meal and relieve himself. For the past few days, Fang Yuan had been deliberately suppressing the tidal wave impact while continuously absorbing the natural true essence within the origin stones. Therefore, over such a long period, the water level of the Bronze Origin Sea only dropped from its limit of 4.4 to about 2.5. As time passed, when the sea surface water level reached only 1.3, the glass membrane finally couldn't withstand it and reached its limit. Crack, crack, crack. The originally thick and sturdy glass membrane collapsed and shattered. Countless shards of glass fell into the origin sea, creating a spray of foam. In an instant, they transformed into shimmering white particles and completely vanished. Replacing the glass membrane was a completely new white light membrane. This was the light membrane of the second transformation, although it hadn't changed much and still emitted the same white light. It was far more dazzling than the light membrane of the first transformation. Moreover, a few faint red primordial essences began to appear in the primordial sea at the bottom of the aperture, mixing with the already scarce dark blue primordial sea. This was the crimson iron primordial essence that only those in the early stage of the second transformation could possess. Success! I finally broken through to the second transformation. Fang Yuan suddenly opened his eyes. However, a sudden, intense dizziness overwhelmed him. Continuously cultivating for 4 days and 4 nights without rest. The intensity is too great. My body can barely handle it. Fang Yuan smiled wryly, slowly lying down, without being disturbed during cultivation. It seems the arrangements at the rented room have worked. This money was still worth it. I'll rest well for a day and a night, and return to the mountain stronghold tomorrow. Thinking this, an intense drowsiness came over him. Fang Yuan struggled to open his eyes, using his strong will to pull the quilt over himself. After closing his eyes, in just a few breaths, he fell into a deep sleep. His previous cultivation had depleted much of his energy. He slept soundly until the afternoon of the second day. When Fang Yuan opened his eyes, he felt his energy had recovered more than half, but his body still felt somewhat weak. He pushed open the door of his room, for the first time in 5 days. He had left this room. The sound immediately attracted someone. This person had long, narrow eyes and a thin build. It was Jiang He, Jiang Ya's older brother. After seeing Fang Yuan's haggard appearance, he breathed a sigh of relief and said, "You finally came out. If you hadn't come out in a few more days, I would have really had to break down the door. After all, if you died here, I would bear a great responsibility." Fang Yuan smiled, but said nothing. The winter sunlight streamed through the window, illuminating his body and face, further emphasizing his pale and weak appearance. 5 days prior, he had deliberately inquired with the landlord, and after leaving a clue about the coal for Zhao San and his group, he left the mountain stronghold and headed straight to the village at the foot of the mountain. Thanks to his previous relationship with Old Man Wang's family, Jiang He had become a half-ally. It was by leveraging this relationship that Fang Yuan had stayed in the village for the past few days without being disturbed, successfully breaking through to the second stage. Of course, the cave in the rocky ravine was certainly more secretive than Jiang He's place. But it was not safe. Fang Yuan also had to consider the possibility that Zhao San and his group might persistently search for him and discover the cave in the rocky ravine. Although this possibility was very small, If the remains of the Hua Ju practitioner were discovered, Fang Yuan's life would be in danger. Fang Yuan, being cautious, naturally wouldn't take such a risk. Moreover, Jiang He's side was also quite safe. Although they shared a secret, Jiang He wouldn't kill Fang Yuan to silence him. The trouble and danger of killing a Gu master were too great, the benefits weren't worth it. So it didn't constitute a motive for Jiang He to commit murder. On the contrary, because he had to protect the secret, Jiang He would be even more worried about Fang Yuan's safety. Once Fang Yuan died, the family's punishment hall would investigate, and perhaps even the secrets of Old Man Wang's entire family would be discovered. Seeing Fang Yuan come out safely, Jiang He truly breathed a sigh of relief. But very quickly, he noticed Fang Yuan's aura, and his expression changed slightly. "I didn't expect you to actually succeed. Breaking through to the second transformation in one go." He was extremely surprised. 5 days ago, Fang Yuan suddenly came to his door, clearly stating his intentions, and at that time, he had actually been a little dismissive. Absorbing the natural true essence in the origin stone while simultaneously attempting to break through to the second transformation, this method of multitasking was extremely draining on his energy. Generally speaking, a Gu master must possess extremely strong willpower, perseverance, and at least several years of cultivation experience. This experience allows the Gu master to view the absorption of true essence from the primordial stone as a kind of instinct. At the same time, the Gu master can manipulate the tidal waves of the primordial sea, suppressing the impact force to a certain extent. Furthermore, this level must be just right, resisting the self-healing barrier while limiting the rapid depletion, and coordinating with the restoration of true essence to ensure timely replenishment. In Jiang He's view, Fang Yuan's success rate was almost zero, but unexpectedly, he succeeded on his first try. Fang Yuan smiled as if unconcerned. "Just luck. I plan to return to the mountain stronghold today, but it would be great to have a meal before that." "Ha ha ha, brother Fang Yuan, since you've come to my place, of course. Food and drink are on me." Jiang He patted his chest, his attitude becoming even more amiable. Although he also valued Fang Yuan's future, Fang Yuan's successful advancement to the second rank was like overcoming a difficult hurdle and giving him the right to be on equal footing with him. After a lavish feast, Jiang He personally escorted Fang Yuan to the village gate. "Brother Fang Yuan, be careful on this trip. Recently, there's been some commotion around the wolf den, causing more wild beasts to roam around the mountain village." "Oh, it's snowing again." Jiang He paused for a moment before continuing. "Listen to me, don't leave so quickly. How about staying for a night?" Since Fang Yuan's advancement to the second rank, he had become even more enthusiastic. Fang Yuan insisted on leaving, bidding farewell to Jiang He. Each snowflake fell silently, like white downy feathers slowly drifting down. The setting sun bathed the white snow in golden light. A few snowflakes fell on Fang Yuan's shoulders and head. In the distance, the ancient Moon Mountain village stood silently on the mountainside, far out in sight. Chapter 93, Small-Scale Beast Tide. "Hurry, don't fall behind. The tribesmen at the front are fighting fiercely, waiting for our reinforcements. Everyone stay close behind. Night combat is very easy to get disoriented. Especially newcomers need to be especially careful." On the way back to the mountain stronghold, small groups of 5 people occasionally ran past Fang Yuan. What happened? In just a short journey of less than 500 meters, Fang Yuan had encountered 13 groups of people. He couldn't help but ponder, but the memories of 500 years were too long and too complicated. Moreover, since Fang Yuan's rebirth, he had never stopped trying to recall. However, many memories seemed to be covered in a thick fog. If he tried to remember, he would only get lost in the fog, doing more harm than good. Only a few very profound memories were like a string of pearls, connecting throughout Fang Yuan's 500 years of his previous life. Obviously, What was happening before his eyes wasn't within the realm of this memory bead ring. Life in the ancient Moon Mountain village was only the beginning. It had been a very long time. And besides, perhaps this never happened in my previous life. And the changes only occurred because I changed. Maybe that's the case. Lost in thought as he walked, Fang Yuan arrived at the north gate of the mountain village. Just then, another group was about to depart. Seeing Fang Yuan alone, one of the group members suddenly stopped. Fang Yuan, why are you still here? What's wrong? Fang Yuan looked back. The speaker was none other than one of his classmates, Gu Yue Chi Cheng. Zich Cheng immediately frowned. Oh dear. You don't know, a small beast tide has formed in the vicinity of the villages. If we ignore it, it will gradually develop into a large beast tide. By then, the villages at the foot of the mountain will be completely destroyed. Our mountain stronghold would be very inconvenient without these ordinary human slaves. So that's it, Fang Yuan's eyes flashed. With this reminder, he remembered that this seemed to be something he had recalled. In this world, human survival is difficult, and beast tides occur almost every few years. Humans need resources and living space. And so do wild beasts and insects. Perhaps explaining beast tides as wars between wild beasts and humans would be easier to understand. For example, in Qingmao Mountain, a large wolf tide attacks the major mountain strongholds every 3 years. Judging by the timing, the real wolf tide will likely erupt next year. The origin of this small-scale beast tide is also due to the reasons mentioned above. The wolf pack is constantly growing, continuously encroaching on the living space of other surrounding animal groups. Day after day, after reaching a certain limit, the animal groups will be forced to relocate, and these relocated groups will inevitably affect other groups. Quote, under this mutual influence, there's a probability of widespread impact, causing all animal groups to relocate simultaneously, thus forming a beast tide. If this is not controlled promptly, the beast tide will grow larger and larger, although it won't temporarily endanger the existence of the ancient Moon Mountain village. If left unchecked, the village will weaken. Wait a minute, if that's the case, Fang Yuan's eyes suddenly lit up, but he quickly lowered his eyelids, concealing the change in his gaze. Seeing that Fang Yuan remained silent, Chi Cheng continued, currently, both the Internal Affairs and External Affairs departments have issued mobilization orders and urgent missions. Fang Yuan, don't be lazy, your team set off this morning, so you must go too. However, at this point, Chi Cheng deliberately dragged out his words. In the beast tide, dangers lurk everywhere, various wild beasts roam freely, and nighttime combat is far more perilous than daytime. A small first-rank Gu master like you isn't even a second-rank Gu master like me. So you need to be extra careful. Ha ha ha. While saying these words, he deliberately raised his head and puffed out his chest, stroking his belt slightly, his face beaming with pride. His belt was no longer the green of a first-rank Gu master, but red, representing a second-rank Gu master. At the same time, the steel plate embedded in the front of his belt was engraved with the character second. Not long ago, with the help of his grandfather, Qi Lian, Gu Yue Chi Cheng had also successfully advanced to the second rank. I only just heard this news. But if that's the case, Fang Yuan suddenly smiled. Then I'll go with you. Once we reach the front line, I'll leave the team and return to my squad. What? Who wants to take you with them? Chi Cheng crossed his arms, disdainfully pouting. Fang Yuan said in a worried tone, the clan rules state that separated Gu masters must rejoin a nearby squad to continue their combat duties. Chi Cheng, don't you even know this? You, Chi Cheng glared, wanting to explode with anger. That's true, Chi Shan, who had been silent all along, finally spoke. He was nearly 2 meters tall, with a powerful build, bare-chested, his muscles bulging and as hard as iron. His entire body was a fiery red, radiating heat. Without a doubt he is the leader of this subgroup. Seeing him open his mouth, Qi Cheng, despite his status as the heir of the Qi family, couldn't help but shut up. Qi Shan, with an expressionless face, looked at Fang Yuan and continued, "We're going, you follow." His voice was low, his words concise, exuding an air of absolute certainty. Fang Yuan shrugged indifferently, indicating his agreement. Qi Cheng sneered, giving Fang Yuan a malicious look, emphasizing in a strange tone, "You need to catch up." Fang Yuan didn't react. HMPH, what's the point of dragging him along? Just a first-rank Gu master. Qi Cheng muttered angrily, but fearing Qi Shan's authority, he didn't dare to act further. At this moment, the group of 6 set off, following the mountain path down to the foot of the mountain. Gu Yue Qi Shan led the way. His physique was tall and imposing. Yet his speed was not slow. Apart from him and Qi Cheng, the other team members were 2 men and 1 woman, all with cold expressions. Running swiftly, the Qi Shan team began to display the demeanor of one of the 3 strongest teams. Everyone breathed steadily, their steps quick yet graceful. Only Qi Cheng seemed to struggle, but occasionally he used the Qi Wan Chu Chu Gu, managing to keep up. Moreover, it was evident that he had received excellent experience. Although he stumbled, at least he didn't fall flat on his face. At the foot of the mountain, Qi Shan gestured with his hand, and the team suddenly stopped. Ha ha ha. Qi Cheng had fallen behind by 300 steps, the last to catch up. His face pale, panting heavily, his eyes filled with disbelief as he looked at Fang Yuan. Throughout this journey, Fang Yuan had always followed closely behind, only stopping now, yet only slightly out of breath. It was impossible to tell that he was a newcomer. Qi Cheng, remember, adjust your stamina. Qi Shan turned around, reminding Qi Cheng, then secretly glanced at Fang Yuan, a look of admiration in his eyes. The other team members also looked at Fang Yuan, their expressions softening. Next, we'll approach the beast tide. Qi Cheng, Fang Yuan, take the middle position of the team. Qi Shan looked at the dark mountains and forests ahead and said. This made Fang Yuan observe Qi Shan again. This big guy was actually quite magnanimous. The middle of the team was usually the safest position, and although Fang Yuan wasn't from the Mo family, Qi Shan still maintained his composure and protected the newcomer. Compared to him, Snake Horn 3 immediately seemed inferior. The sky had completely turned black, with layers of clouds making even the accumulated snow seem gloomy. The Red Mountain group had changed formation, significantly slowing their pace, moving slowly across the complex mountainous terrain. Fang Yuan and Red City were in the middle of the formation, with the tall and imposing Red Mountain on their left, an old man on their right, and a young woman with long, flowing blue hair behind them. In front was a male Gu master named Red Tongue. He was the scout Gu master of this group, hissing and occasionally sticking out his tongue. His tongue had now branched, transforming into a bright red snake-like tongue. Deep within the mountains and forests, wild beasts began to rampage and run wildly. Suddenly, Red Tongue spoke. 3 medium-sized creatures have appeared ahead, suspected to be deer. Drive them away, Red Mountain immediately ordered, his expression unchanged. The 6-person group maintained their direction, continuing straight ahead. The 3 deer that had charged forward all changed direction and scattered. Not long after, Qi Shiat's expression changed. A group of medium-sized creatures, suspected to be turtle-backed apes. Change direction, Qi Shan said. The small group immediately moved to the left, circling around this troublesome group of apes. This was the advantage of having reconnaissance means. They could anticipate the situation early and make precise adjustments. Qi Shiat must be using the snake tongue Gu. This second-rank Gu can sense heat. However, it has 3 obvious drawbacks. First, its detection range is small. Second, it's easily disturbed. And third, it can't detect cold-blooded creatures. But no matter what, it's better to have one than not. I've advanced to the 2nd rank. And I'll need a reconnaissance goo for survival in the wilderness, Fang Yuan thought. Suddenly, Qi Shiat, who was at the front, urgently said, "A medium-sized creature, suspected to be a white tiger. It has spotted us and is approaching very quickly." "Continue the battle," Qi Shan calmly said. Roar! A fierce tiger suddenly emerged from the forest, putting the small group in a precarious situation. If Qi Shiat hadn't warned them in advance, they might have been caught off guard. But now, everyone had already prepared themselves for the attack. First, the old man on the right suddenly puffed out his cheeks and spat out a viscous white object. This object suddenly expanded in midair, transforming into a huge spider web, using its extremely strong adhesive ability to trap the white tiger. The tiger struggled violently inside the web, and Qi Shan stepped forward, swinging his fist and striking its head. A metallic glint flashed on his fist, and with a loud crack, the tiger's head was shattered, its life overturned. Without pausing for a moment, they stepped over the tiger's carcass and continued forward. Qi Shi once again replaced Qi Shan, leading the way. The entire process flowed smoothly, with all the team members displaying excellent teamwork. From beginning to end, it only took 3 seconds. If I were fighting this tiger alone right now, it would take at least 5 minutes. Fang Yuan's eyes suddenly gleamed. The cultivation levels of these goo masters were also second rank like his. But the main difference lay in the goo worms. The goo worms they used were all second-rank goo worms, complementing each other to become even stronger. Fang Yuan, however, still only had first-rank goo worms. Goo master. Goo master. Goo comes before master. Goo worms have a huge impact on a goo master's actual combat power. Although I've advanced to the second rank, I still need a second-rank goo worm to fully unleash the combat power of a second-rank goo master. However, I don't have much primeval stones left now. The attempt to reach the second rank has consumed a significant portion. And each goo worm fusion is a considerable expense. While Fang Yuan was deep in thought, Qi Tung in front of him suddenly said, "We've spotted a small group of plague snakes." Chapter 94. Suddenly withdrawing power, to the left. Ahead, a small group of the plague serpent has been spotted, engaged in a fierce battle with a large beast. Just half a second later, Qi Shiat spoke again, this time even more detailed. "What's the situation?" Qi Shan frowned. "Not good." Qi Shiat's snake tongue flicked in and out continuously. "The crimson rock python of Jusan is unique. Only he possesses it. It's fighting against a wild boar king." Everyone's faces immediately turned pale. A wild boar king. I need wild boar tusks to refine my goo worms. Without a doubt, the wild boar king's tusks are the most suitable, Fang Yuan suddenly thought. In fact, he had long intended to kill the wild boar king. "Is it that wild boar king?" The long-haired, blue-haired female goo master raised her eyebrows. "Apart from this one, there's no other one nearby. But to think that the snake plague team can devour this wild boar king with their strength. That's quite a heavy appetite." The old goo master scoffed disdainfully. If Old Man Wang could even explore the terrain in the mountains, then the second-rank goo masters operating in Qingmao Mountain would naturally know even better. The reason they didn't eliminate this wild boar king was obviously for another reason. Qi Shan pondered for a moment and said, "Go provide reinforcements." "Ha ha, I'm afraid they won't appreciate it." The old goo master sneered. "Even if we don't provide reinforcements, we still have to send someone there." Qi Cheng glanced at Fang Yuan beside him, his voice full of annoyance. The team's direction shifted slightly, moving to the left and forward. Although the people of Chishan had always looked down on and disliked Gu Yue Jiao San, as members of the same clan, facing an external enemy, even if they had daily grudges, they had to unite. This was the unifying force of a clan in this world. And it was thanks to this unifying force that some clans survived for centuries. Even millennia. In the darkness, Everyone passed through a forest to a low-lying area. 4 ancient masters of the Snake Plague group were surrounding the Wild Boar King, engaging in a fierce battle. In the middle of the battle, the Wild Boar King, as huge as an elephant, was fighting a red python as thick as a bowl. The entire body of this red python was covered in dark red, intensely hot stones. It was like a thick, strong chain wrapped around the Wild Boar King's body. The Wild Boar King roared in anger, rolling uncontrollably on the ground, its snow-white tusks piercing the night, transforming into cold streaks of light in the air. Its body was covered in wounds of all sizes, and its tail was severed. Several places revealed bright red flesh, the parts of its body that had been pressed against the crimson rock serpent, scorched by the serpent's burning hot body. The Red Mountain group didn't approach, only observing from a distance. After observing a few times, the old Goo Master suddenly understood. I told you, the plague serpent wouldn't dare do that. It turns out this Wild Boar King is injured. Damn it, this scoundrel has struck gold. Do you think this Wild Boar King has the black serpent goo on it? Chi Cheng's eyes lit up with excitement. Fang Yuan watched silently, his expression unchanged. At this moment, the 4 people, including Ju San, also saw this side. The logistics Goo Master Gu Yue Kong Jing, who was on the outermost edge, immediately broke away from the battle and rushed over. So it's Lord Chishan. There's nothing to worry about here anymore. We can handle it. There are still many beasts on the front line, and we need your support, Kong Jing said to everyone. HMPH, what can you handle? You're just blatantly lying. I see this red rock serpent is about to collapse. The old sorcerer's eyes were sharp and his words hit the nail on the head. You're just afraid that after we take action, you'll get less of the spoils, aren't you? The long-haired, green-haired female sorcerer directly exposed the thoughts of the 4, including Zhao San. This Wild Boar King is yours, Chishan said, looking at the old sorcerer. The old sorcerer snorted but still bowed, spitting out a white, sticky spider web. The web unfolded in the air, instantly enveloping the Wild Boar King. The Wild Boar King struggled violently in the spider web, a mass of spider silk breaking, but it couldn't break free for a while. Taking advantage of this, the snake-horned demon quickly withdrew the crimson rock serpent. Then he and the female Goo Master in the healing team simultaneously performed emergency battlefield treatment on the crimson rock serpent. In the fierce battle just now, the crimson rock serpent's stone body had developed many cracks. Thanks to the treatment, these cracks continuously shrank, diminished, and eventually disappeared. Fang Yuan, you should go back now. Do you still want to stay in our team? Chi Cheng said angrily. Fang Yuan slowly took a step forward, emerging from behind Qi Shan. Gu Yue Kong Jing, who had been obscured by Qi Shan's tall figure earlier, hadn't noticed Fang Yuan. Now that he saw him, his expression immediately became somewhat strange. When Jia San turned around and saw Fang Yuan, he immediately rejoiced. Fang Yuan, you finally arrived. Hurry up, the spider web is about to break. You have great strength. Go and stop the Wild Boar King. Buy us some time. We need time to treat the red rock serpent. Without defensive goo worms and with only a first-stage cultivation, yet rashly approaching the Wild Boar King, it was undoubtedly a suicidal act. Qi Shan looked at Fang Yuan and said, "Go." After saying that, he led the way, quickly leaving the area. He meant what he said, although the Wild Boar King was valuable. He didn't hesitate, turning around and leaving immediately. Seeing Qi Shan's group leave, Zhao San and the others secretly breathed a sigh of relief. They hadn't said a word of thanks until now. Zhao San continued to shout, "Fang Yuan, hurry up, the Wild Boar King is very strong. The spider web is about to break. If you perform well this time, I won't pursue the matter of you leaving the group without permission." "Okay," Fang Yuan replied, quickly stepping in front of the Wild Boar King, and with a swift movement, immediately grasped its 2 large tusks. He exerted force to suppress it, and the wild boar king was immediately subdued, its struggles suddenly diminishing. Excellent, Jia-san encouraged, a cold glint flashing in his triangular eyes. Fang Yuan had arrived at just the right time. This small beast tide was a perfect opportunity. Jia-san hadn't yet considered killing Fang Yuan. Fang Yuan was his clan member. If Fang Yuan died, the clan's opinion of him would plummet. This didn't align with his interests. He had only agreed to Gu Yue Dongtu's request to hinder Fang Yuan's development. As long as he prevented Fang Yuan from turning 16, he could obtain the money Gu Yue Dongtu had promised. In fact, although he was stingy and cunning, he had never considered killing Fang Yuan. This wasn't just because the death of a Gu master would lead to a thorough investigation by the punishment hall, which was very dangerous, but most importantly, it was because of the clan's core principle, blood ties. The concept of prioritizing family ties has become deeply ingrained in everyone's hearts. Unless it's a case of vengeful murder or kidnapping, there's almost no such thing as fratricide. Just like the clan leader Gu Yue once taught the elders of the clan academy. Family bonds, besides rules and regulations, are also bound by deep familial affection. The existence of any organization must have these two foundations, regulations and these core values. Taking advantage of this opportunity, we'll injure Fang Yuan, forcing him back to the mountain stronghold to lie sick in bed. Let's see if he can still attempt to break through to the second stage. Of course, I can't do it myself. If I'm discovered, it'll be disastrous. After all, there are so many wild beasts in the beast tide. Let's just use these external influences. Gu Yue Jiao-san chuckled coldly inwardly, but outwardly asked, Fang Yuan, how long can you hold out? I can still hold out for a while. Don't worry, leader, Fang Yuan confidently replied. Very well, Hua Han, quickly go and plant the blood-corroding herb, while treating the crimson rock serpent, Jia-san loudly ordered. Yes, a female Gu master stepped forward. She went to the side of the wild boar king, extended both hands, and held up her two little fingers. On the fingernails of her little fingers, there was a faint mark of a purple vine wrapping around them. Pale red true essence appeared, swirling around her lovely white little fingers, then entering the vine mark. The vine immediately grew, extending from the fingernail into a small tendril. The tendril crawled like a snake, spreading to the corner of the wild boar king's mouth, then slowly penetrating its belly through its teeth. Ha ha ha, a sinister smile suddenly appeared on Fang Yuan's lips, hidden in the shadows. Others still cared about family ties and wouldn't easily have the intention of killing their own clansmen. This was a very wrong act against traditional values. But he paid no attention to any of this. The force pressing down on the wild boar's tusks suddenly stopped. The wild boar king roared in anger, unleashing all its strength, and the tusks lashed out. Fang Yuan, who was holding the two tusks with his hands, was also flung high into the air by this immense force. The wild boar king lashed its head again, the long tusks sweeping horizontally. The female Gu master standing nearby, caught off guard by this sudden turn of events, was struck by the tusks and let out a heart-wrenching scream. Then, her delicate body was mercilessly pierced by the tusks, and with a crack, it broke in two. The female Gu master flew out like a tattered sack, soaring high before crashing down. She landed on the ground, her beautiful eyes wide open, and died tragically on the spot. Chapter 95. My teammates are as stupid as pigs. The female Gu master's body was like a puppet, one side of her waist bent and broken, her upper body lying face down on the ground, her lower and upper bodies twisted in reverse, her buttocks pressed against the ground, her toes pointing towards the sky. Meanwhile, in the distance, Fang Yuan also fell from the air. First, he landed on a tree branch, breaking many leaves before falling onto a snow-covered area. He nimbly turned over and stood up from the snow, because he had just urged the jade skin Gu, Apart from a dull ache in his back, he was unharmed. On the battlefield on the other side, there was a moment of silence. Then the angry growl of Ju San, "Fang Yuan, didn't you say you could still hold on?" Fang Yuan secretly sneered, his body suddenly swaying, almost falling flat on his face. He used his hand to support himself against a tree trunk to maintain balance. He pretended to have sprained his ankle and couldn't walk, but his eyes glanced around, checking for other Gu masters. During the Beast Tide, the Gu masters were fighting here, completely preoccupied with their own needs, and certainly not having the leisure to come and observe Fang Yuan. However, even though he had been secretly observing and hadn't detected any other Gu masters nearby, Fang Yuan still cautiously chose to feign a sprained ankle. Meanwhile, the sounds of fierce fighting erupted from the other side. Clearly, the wild boar king had escaped its predicament and was now attacking the red rock serpent. Fang Yuan slowly returned, his face filled with anxiety, falling to the ground several times. Mud, grass, and snow clung to him, making him look extremely disheveled. Finally, he returned to the edge of the battlefield. Inside, 3 people and a boar were locked in combat. The red rock serpent's body was tightly coiled around the wild boar king's body and hind legs. The wild boar king's hind legs could only kick wildly, causing it to roll on the ground and thrash about, its front legs kicking back and charging forward recklessly. The wounds on its body multiplied, and hot blood stained the ground red. Seeing Fang Yuan approaching, Gu Yue Kong Jing, who was at the very edge, immediately yelled, "Fang Yuan, you bastard, you killed Hua Xin. I didn't mean to. I just really couldn't bear it anymore." Fang Yuan cried out. "Damn it, couldn't bear it, and you still insisted. If you couldn't, just say you couldn't. Making things up like that is killing people." Gu Yue Kong Jing glared. If they weren't fighting, he would have rushed forward and slapped Fang Yuan twice. "Yes, I'm really sorry, I won't do that again," Fang Yuan repeatedly pleaded. "Fang Yuan, I'll settle the score with you later," the Serpent Horn 3 roared from the other side. Under immense pressure, the dying wild boar king had fallen into a frenzy, its entire body covered in cracks. "Kong Jing, don't worry about Fang Yuan anymore. Quickly get the blade scale net." Seeing the red rock serpent about to collapse, Horn 3's forehead was covered in cold sweat as he hurriedly shouted. "Yes." Kong Jing quickly took out the great pot, urged his true essence, and spat out an iron net. This iron net was woven with sharp thorns and gleaming blades. "Fang Yuan, you grab the other end and charge forward with me. Capture this wild boar king," Kong Jing yelled. "But I sprained my ankle. I can't walk." Fang Yuan, with a worried expression, limped over. Useless. Kong Jing, in desperation, had to take matters into his own hands, pulling the blade scale net and throwing it towards the wild boar king. The wild boar king, trapped in the blade scale net, immediately let out a piteous cry, blood gushing out. Sensing death approaching, it struggled even harder, but the more it struggled, the tighter the blade scale net wrapped around it, and the more severe its injuries became. The red rock serpent, however, was less damaged by the blade scale net because of its stone body. "What a pity for this hide." A hint of regret flashed in Ju San's eyes. "Finally, it's over." Kong Jing breathed a sigh of relief. Just then, Fang Yuan shouted, "I'll help everyone." Whoosh! Several crescent blades flew out, striking the blade scale net and cutting the iron wires. The wild boar king struggled violently, and in an instant, the hole widened, the blade scale net becoming a tattered net, and the wild boar king escaped. Immediately, Kong Jing's eyes widened in astonishment. Damn it, another female Gu master, no longer caring about her ladylike image, loudly blurted out a vulgar curse. It seems I've caused trouble. I was just trying to help everyone," Fang Yuan exclaimed, his voice sincere and innocent. Zhao San rolled on the ground. dodging the charging wild boar king, and as soon as he stood up, he roared, "Fang Yuan! You idiot, look what you've done, you're a complete pig-headed teammate." "Team leader, you have to believe me. I really didn't mean to," Fang Yuan explained. "Shut your mouth, I won't allow you to attack again. Stand aside and wait," Zhao San yelled, rolling again to avoid the wild boar king's stomp. Fang Yuan secretly sneered, but still obeyed and retreated more than 10 steps. "You all retreat." Zhao San snorted loudly. He began to reveal his true trump card. From his nostrils, 2 streams of yellow poisonous gas shot out. Poisonous gas continuously emanated from his nostrils, gradually forming a yellow cloud of poison. From outside the cloud, the wild boar king and Zhao San could be faintly seen. The 3 of them, Kong Jing, Fang Yuan, and the others, had retreated to observe the battle. Fang Yuan said to the remaining female Gu master, "Treat my leg wound, my foot is sprained." The female Gu master's face turned purple with anger. "My good sister is dead. And you only have a sprained foot. Why don't you just die?" Fang Yuan said sadly, "I didn't want this to happen either." But deep in his eyes, a sharp glint flashed. Should he eliminate these people? Now was undoubtedly a good opportunity. Subconsciously, they absolutely wouldn't expect him to have murderous intentions. If the Plague Snake group were eliminated, the restraint on him would lessen somewhat. However, if this process were witnessed by other Gu masters, he would be doomed forever. The crime of murdering one's own clansman is the most unforgivable crime in this world. Punishable not only by death, but also by 7 days and 7 nights of torture in front of everyone. Asterisk, forever and ever, meaning there's no turning back, no chance of redemption. Death itself isn't frightening, but risking everything for a small group like this is not worth it. To kill them, one must use the beast tide, and remain completely unscathed. Unfortunately, the wild boar king is dead. After this battle, the Plague Serpent group suffered heavy casualties. Their fighting strength weakened to the extreme, forcing them to leave the battlefield. What a pity, such a good opportunity. Fang Yuan felt a pang of regret. But he had already pushed himself to the absolute limit. Exceeding this level would be too blatant. Others weren't fools. They would surely discover it. Or the surrounding Gu masters would see it, too risky. After 5 minutes, the wild boar king fell to the ground with a thud. The yellow mist dissipated, and Zhao San stood there, panting heavily, his face pale. He had used his last resort, and his remaining vital energy was almost gone. "You guys go and dissect the carcass. Hurry up, take the spoils, and we'll retreat immediately," Zhao San shouted. Fang Yuan and the others surrounded the wild boar and immediately began to dissect its carcass. The wild boar king's blood was hot and pungent, the air thick with the smell of blood. The surrounding mountains and forests were dark, and the roars of wild beasts and the sounds of fierce battles echoed incessantly. Yet, there were no other wild beasts roaming the area. This was the majesty of a beast king. Even wild beasts have their rules. The intense aura of the wild boar king struck terror into the hearts of ordinary beasts, causing them to scatter and avoid the approaching tide. Of course, if a stronger pack or beast king appeared, they wouldn't be intimidated by the wild boar king's aura. At this moment, suddenly, pairs of green eyes appeared in the surrounding darkness. From other places, screams of terror and the terrified shouts of the ancient masters rang out. "It's a pack of wolves. A pack of electric wolves has appeared. Damn it, why are the wolves here? It's not even time for the wolf tide to erupt yet. Retreat, don't worry about the wild boar king anymore. Let's retreat quickly," Jia San shouted, and the faces of those around him instantly turned pale. A single electric wolf isn't scary, but once they form a pack, even the wild boar king would have to retreat. The main reason was that the electric wolves were incredibly resilient, incredibly fast, and especially skilled at pursuit. In such a critical situation, Ju San couldn't care about anything else. abandoning the other three and frantically running to the rear. Team leader, wait for me, Kong Jing cried out in fear, hastily chasing after him. I don't have any speed-enhancing goo worms. I can't escape. Ju San and the others don't have much true essence left, even with speed-enhancing goo worms. They can't escape the pursuit of the electric wolves. Facing imminent death, Fang Yuan remained calm and cold as ice. He made a decisive move, using his hand as a blade to chop at the neck of the stunned female goo master beside him, rendering her unconscious. Then he dragged her into the gaping belly of the wild boar king, which had a large hole cut through it. Fang Yuan squeezed into the boar's blood-soaked body, simultaneously pulling the female goo master inside, using her body to shield himself. The pack of wolves charged forward, most chasing the retreating goo masters like Ju San and Kong Jing, while a portion remained, surrounding the boar king's corpse and beginning to devour it. Inside the boar's body, Fang Yuan could hear the sounds of the electric wolves chewing and the vibrations as they tore at the flesh. I didn't expect a pack of electric wolves to appear in the first wave of the beast tide. This is unexpected. The clan will definitely send reinforcements. The boar king's body is enormous. It will take the electric wolves some time to eat their way inside. If I can hold out for a while, I might be lucky enough to escape. Fang Yuan thought silently. If all goes as expected, Zhao San and Kong Jing are doomed. Their vital energy is depleted, and they lack speed. Such a short distance means they'll inevitably be hunted down by the pack of wolves. In panic, people make foolish choices. Under the pressure of death, those who can remain calm and instantly choose the most advantageous response. Like Fang Yuan, are truly rare. Even if the wild boar king's flesh is completely devoured, and Fang Yuan, hiding inside, is forced to reveal himself, the number of electric wolves he faces won't be as many as others. Based on his experience, he estimates at most 5. And he still has the strength to fight. His chances of survival are greater than others. The sound of electric wolves gnawing on the cart continued, and was getting closer and closer. Most of the wild boar king's flesh had already gone into the wolves' stomachs. If an ordinary person were in such a situation, they would feel like a second was a year. However, Fang Yuan closed his eyes, took out his reserve of primal stones, held them in his palm, and began to scramble for every second to restore his true essence. Chapter 96 – For the Dead. Finally, the true essence that Fang Yuan had recovered while inside the wild boar's belly was not used. This beast tide was always under the watchful eyes of the high-ranking members of the ancient Moon tribe, and the appearance of the electric wolves was just a minor surprise. Not long after, the high-ranking members of the ancient Moon tribe reacted quickly. 3 elders personally led the team, swiftly stabilizing the situation with lightning speed. At the very last moment, Fang Yuan, inside the wild boar's belly, heard the sounds of fighting outside along with the agonizing cries of several electric wolves. He hastily kicked away the female goo master in front of him, his body covered in blood, and crawled out. Of course, Fang Yuan wasn't worried about the electric wolves, but rather about being caught in the aftermath of the battle. If he were mistakenly struck by a goo master's technique on the wild boar's carcass, wouldn't he be unjustly accused? Who could he then complain to? Suddenly, a living person emerged from the belly of a wild boar, terrifying the goo masters who were fiercely battling the electric wolves. Fang Yuan was covered in blood and gore, with a large intestine of a wild boar wrapped around his leg. The pungent smell of blood emanating from him caused the goo masters to frown slightly. But Fang Yuan didn't care. He happily took a few deep breaths, stretched his limbs, and glanced at the battlefield as if nothing had happened. As he expected, there were 5 electric wolves in total. However, none of these electric wolves were old, weak, or sickly. They were at the bottom of the wolf den. As the wolf pack grew, and resources became limited, the Wolf King, in order to maintain the young and strong electric wolves, would expel the old and weak ones from the pack. These electric wolves would gather together, first attacking the surrounding beasts, then influencing each other, ultimately forming this small beast tide. Under the onslaught of the Gu masters, the 5 electric wolves quickly suffered casualties. They had eaten too much, their bulging bellies affecting their fighting ability. Moreover, the newly arrived Gu masters were not like the likes of Ju San. Their vital energy in their apertures was abundant, and their combat power was at its peak. For Gu masters, vital energy is paramount. A phoenix in distress is no match for a chicken. A lack of vital energy will drastically reduce a Gu master's fighting power. And a Gu master without vital energy might not even be as good as an ordinary person. Therefore, why are Gu insects like the wineworm and black and white Gu so precious? This is also reflected in this aspect. First, having the wineworm allows for the refinement of vital energy, enabling Gu masters to store even more vital energy. As for the black and white Gu, they enhance the Gu master's strength and can be used even without true essence. Furthermore, after one person uses the black and white Gu, others can use it, giving it great collective value. The battle dragged on for a while before ending. The 5 electric wolves fell one after another, and the newly arrived reinforcement team didn't pursue further. Their true essence was greatly depleted, their fighting power significantly reduced, so it was best to stop and rest while waiting for the next wave of reinforcements. In a team of 5, the Gu master scouted the area. The other 3 quickly replenished their true essence with spirit stones, and the Gu master in charge of healing knelt down to examine the female Gu master's body. "She's dead," the healing Gu master sighed heavily, his sorrowful expression suggesting he knew this female Gu master. Fang Yuan watched indifferently. The female Gu master whom he had knocked unconscious had always shielded him. But now she had lost her right breast and a leg, and a huge wound on her arm from being gnawed by the electric wolf, exposing the pale white bone. However, these wounds and the large amount of blood that flowed out were not the real cause of her death. The true cause of her death was cardiac arrest. The electric wolf's bite carried an electric current. The current traveled through the unconscious Gu master's body, causing her heart to stop beating. Her once beautiful and fiery body now lay motionless on the ground. After death, all her former charm was gone, leaving only an ugly corpse. "She's dead. This is all your fault. Why, as a man, did you hide behind a woman? You are a disgrace to manhood." The healing Gu master suddenly raised his head and stared at Fang Yuan. Fang Yuan shrugged indifferently, his expression calm. "Actually, she was vying for the inner position with me, but in the end, I won. In that respect, I was very lucky." "You bastard!" The healing Gu master charged forward. Thump! Fang Yuan raised his foot and kicked him flying. The healing Gu master's combat power was usually weak, and moreover, due to fear of the clan rules, he didn't dare use Gu insects. With only physical strength, how could he be a match for Fang Yuan? "You dog!" The healing Gu master, covered in dust, stood up and wanted to charge again, but was stopped by the scout Gu master. "If you think I committed a crime, causing her death, then you can report it to the punishment hall. I'll take it all." Fang Yuan glanced indifferently at the healing Gu master and turned to leave. "Damn it!" The healing Gu master's eyes blazed with fury as he glared fiercely at Fang Yuan's retreating back. He wanted to rush forward but was held back by the others. "Calm down. Even if we report it to the punishment hall, the family won't punish him. We know you've always admired her, and although the clan rules can't punish him, we can spread this story around." Under the persuasion of one person after another, the healing sorcerer gradually calmed down, bowing his head and sobbing softly. A boat capsized, and a man grabbed a wooden plank, temporarily saving himself. At that moment, another man swam over, also wanting to grab the plank. But the plank could only support the weight of one person. The first man, in order to survive, pushed the man behind him, causing him to drown in the river. Later, the man who was saved was tried but found not guilty. This is the story of the wooden plank incident on Earth. The main point is, under unavoidable circumstances, harming another person's life for one's own sake will not be punished. On Earth, that's the necessity of criminal law. This world also has similar tribal regulations. In other words, even if the Gu master who treated me reports it to the punishment hall, I won't be punished. But Fang Yuan pondered as he walked back, his pace neither fast nor slow. The road had been cleared, and occasionally Fang Yuan would see corpses lying on the ground, mostly wild beasts of all kinds, mixed in with a few Gu masters' bodies. Meanwhile, reinforcements were constantly arriving at the front lines. When they encountered Fang Yuan along the way, most people looked at the blood-soaked youth with suspicious and puzzled eyes. Fang Yuan ignored them, his gaze calm, and continued to ponder. But if the fact that I knocked out the female Gu master earlier were discovered, I would be severely punished for attempting to harm my clansmen. But surely no one saw it. Both Zhao San and Kong Jing had their backs to me, fleeing for their lives. Fang Yuan's footsteps paused slightly. He saw the corpses of Kong Jing and Zhao San. Kong Jing's body was completely disfigured from being gnawed, while Zhao San's corpse was relatively intact. The red rock Gu serpent had shattered into pieces of rock, completely annihilated. Beside the plague serpent were more than 10 corpses of electric wolves. It was clear that Zhao San, on the verge of death, had fought a fierce and brutal battle. Not bad, just like that, except for me. All 4 members of the group are dead. Fang Yuan casually assessed the situation, feeling a little pleased. Just like that, there will be one less obstacle around me. Oh, Fang Yuan stopped in his tracks, noticing a slight twitch in Zhu San's finger. He's not dead yet. Life is truly tenacious. Fang Yuan let out a cold laugh, his murderous intent erupting. Just then, more than 10 Gu masters rushed forward from the front. Quick, save the injured. These are all our clansmen. Save whoever you can. If it's confirmed dead, we still need to retrieve the Gu worms. ... Fang Yuan's eyes narrowed slightly. What to do now? The opponent was within reach. Killing Zhu San would be an extremely risky endeavor. Whether he squeezed with his hands or used the crescent blade, it would leave marks. In front of these Gu masters, he wouldn't have time to clean up these marks. So, should he just let Zhu San go? Besides, even if Zhu San were treated now, he might not survive. No. If I can eliminate Zhu San, the obstacle to my progress will be reduced. If I miss such a good opportunity, it will be very difficult to get another one. Thinking this, an idea suddenly flashed through Fang Yuan's mind. He slowly knelt beside Zhu San, then took off his shirt and gently covered Zhu San's face and upper body with it. He had been hiding inside the wild boar's belly for a very long time, and the boar's blood had already soaked his clothes, making his outer garment heavy and damp. The shirt clung tightly to Zhu San's nose and mouth, preventing him from breathing. Fang Yuan knelt on one knee, silently watching, his face filled with solemnity and sorrow. Just then, a Gu master approached. This young brother. I am a Gu master from the medicine hall. I've come to take a look. Get out of here, Fang Yuan pretended to roar, pushing the man away. The Gu master fell to the ground. But instead of anger, he advised, little brother, please suppress your grief and accept this turn of events. I understand how you feel now. And I also understand the pain of seeing someone you lived with die tragically before your eyes. However, you are covered in blood. And you must be seriously injured. For the sake of those who sacrifice themselves, you must live well. Come here, let me treat you. Fang Yuan didn't speak. He remained silent, his face bowed and shrouded in darkness, allowing the Gu master to examine his body. The results surprised the Gu master. Fang Yuan was covered in blood, looking horrific, but in reality, he didn't have a single wound. However, the Gu master quickly recovered his composure and focused his attention on Zhao San. "I'm very sorry, the family must retrieve the Gu worms." The Gu master looked at Fang Yuan earnestly before slowly lifting the blood-stained shirt. Zarch Tam's slightly open eyes were completely devoid of light. The ancient master skillfully used his hand to pry open Zarch Tam's eyelids. Gazing into his pupils, he reached out and touched the man's neck again. But there was no pulse. He was dead. He was completely dead. The Gu master had no doubt about it. He sighed and placed his hand on Ju San's stomach. His stomach still retained a little warmth. The energy within his body slowly dissipating, leaving no Gu worms inside. The Gu master glanced at Fang Yuan, seemingly intentionally yet unintentionally saying, "Each Gu master's Gu worms are clearly documented. After a Gu master dies, the Gu worms are left to their heir as an inheritance. Keeping them for oneself is against the clan rules." Fang Yuan showed no fear. Meeting the Gu master's gaze, "Of course I know that. Are you suspecting me of stealing the clan leader's Gu worms?" Taking these Gu worms was both risky and troublesome, potentially implicating other secrets of his, which would be a case of the losses outweighing the gains. Fang Yuan understood perfectly well that, although he possessed the spring-autumn cicada, which could instantly refine Gu worms, he couldn't possibly sell them within the clan. It's not worth sacrificing one's life for petty gains. Besides that, there's another matter. His current economic situation isn't very good. Even if he took it, he might not be able to support it. Facing Fang Yuan's questioning, the Gu master quickly smiled and said, "Of course I didn't mean that. The dead cannot be brought back to life. Please, young brother, suppress your grief and accept the truth. For the sake of the dead, you should live even better." Fang Yuan slowly stood up. He stared at the corpse of the plague serpent with eyes full of sorrow. Lost in thought for a while. The night wind howled in his ears. "You're right." Fang Yuan broke the silence after a long pause, his eyes cold and full of profound meaning, saying, "For the sake of the dead, I should live even better." Chapter 97. The Demon Lord Runs Wild. Internal Affairs Hall, Interrogation Room. Winter sunlight streamed through the only window in the roof, illuminating the ground. Tiny dust particles floated in the column of light, each one clearly visible. The column of light enveloped a chair. Fang Yuan sat on it, bathed in sunlight. Opposite him, against the dark wall, a long table sat, behind which 3 elders were seated. The interrogation had dragged on for an hour. "Fang Yuan, are you sure your previous statement contained no errors?" one of the elders asked. "Yes." Fang Yuan lowered his gaze to his toes. The sunlight illuminated his pale face, making him look like a white statue. He had anticipated the current situation. After all, the other 4 Gu masters from his group were all dead. Only he remained alive. In reality, every Gu master would be interrogated to a certain extent, allowing the clan to conveniently gather battlefield information. However, Fang Yuan had been interrogated for an hour already, clearly indicating someone was targeting him and making things difficult for him. This was entirely understandable. As long as they were human, they would have social connections. One person behind the scenes could be connected to a multitude of others. Then recount the battle situation in detail again. The clan elder continued to question. "Okay, it took me a few days to break through to the 2nd rank. Just as I returned to the mountain stronghold, I encountered the Red Mountain group. After discovering the group led by Ju San, I returned to my group. They were locked in a fierce battle with the Wild Boar King." Fang Yuan spoke in his usual calm tone. He had voluntarily revealed his 2nd rank, without the corresponding Gu worm to conceal it. His 2nd rank aura was impossible to hide. Currently, 4 members of the Serpent Plague organization have perished, and the so-called process is Of course. Something he fabricated, however he pleased. However, Fang Yuan only concealed a few key details. Most of what he said was factual. This was Fang Yuan's fifth retelling, and the three elders listened with furrowed brows. They couldn't find any flaws. But they knew one thing. The worst thing about a fabricated lie is repeating it many times. Repeating it repeatedly will inevitably lead to inconsistencies. Yet, after 5 times, Fang Yuan's retelling each time had some differences. But the content remained consistent. It must be true. The three elders exchanged glances, communicating through their eyes. But one of them was dissatisfied. Her daughter was a healing Gu master in the snake plague group. Her most beloved child, yet she met a tragic end at the hands of wolves. This filled her with resentment. And now, looking at Fang Yuan, her eyes were filled with coldness. Fang Yuan, I ask you, why did you use the moonblade to cut through the blade scale net? This middle-aged woman-like elder asked loudly. Because I panicked, wanting to gain merit, but instead I made things worse. Fang Yuan replied. I ask you again, did you intentionally hide inside the wild boar's belly to make the female Gu master in the group suffer the consequences instead of you? The elder asked again. I don't know, I was extremely frightened at the time. And in my panic, I wanted to hide inside the wild boar king's body. As a result, she also crawled in, competing with me for a spot inside. She couldn't get it and was bitten by the electric wolves. Dying. I'm very ashamed, Fang Yuan replied. The middle-aged female clan elder gritted her teeth. Fang Yuan's reply was very cunning. He only stated the facts. But in reality, he didn't mention his own intentions at all. This made it impossible for the clan elder, who had always wanted to suppress him, to find any weaknesses. She was clearly furious but powerless. In such a situation, it was impossible to accuse Fang Yuan. 3 days had passed since the beast tide began. The casualty figures compiled made the faces of the clan's high-ranking members grim. While previous smaller beast tides had also caused losses, they were absolutely not as serious as this. The cause this time was the pack of electric wolves. In the past, at least 3 smaller beast tides would appear before these wolf packs did. This world is harsh, and survival is difficult. For humanity to survive, besides competing for resources with others, they must also struggle against ferocious wild beasts and harsh weather. But these struggles are usually extremely arduous. This small beast tide is just the prelude. The truly terrifying thing is the colossal wolf tide a year later. By then, tens of thousands of electric wolves will attack the mountain stronghold, along with the terrifyingly powerful Thunder Crown Wolf. Thunder Crown Wolf. For those who have forgotten, these are the leading wolves in the electric wolf pack. Its name means, Thunder Crown Wolf. After reluctantly asking a few more questions, and finally receiving Fang Yuan's impeccable answers, the female elder chose to give up. So, Fang Yuan, what are your plans next? Another elder asked, seemingly with hidden meaning. I plan to apply for a branch family mission, inherit my parents' legacy, and live a good life. Fang Yuan said frankly. There was no need to hide this. Because the Serpent Plague Squad was almost completely wiped out, leaving only Fang Yuan, he no longer needed to use his second-rank Gu Master privilege to accept the branch mission. The elder nodded and then shook his head, saying to Fang Yuan, you misunderstood me. Except for you, all the members of your squad have perished. I suggest you join another squad. The difficulty of the missions in the Inner Affairs Hall is designed for squads. It's very difficult for one person to complete them. Whether it's your branch mission or the monthly mandatory mission. Fang Yuan remained silent, not answering. The elder continued, of course, there's another option. You're already a second-rank Gu Master, qualified to become a squad leader. As long as you pass a mission assessment, you can form your own squad. Which do you want to choose? Fang Yuan blinked. I haven't finished thinking yet. I need some time to consider. Then you can go. After you return, Think it over quickly. You should arrange your squad in the next few days. After this period, it will be difficult for you to join any squad," Elder Jia said with concern. Fang Yuan chuckled inwardly. He wouldn't choose either of these two paths. He had too many secrets. Acting alone was not only safer but also more convenient. Otherwise, he would always have to follow others, acting together, which would be a real nuisance. Leaving the interrogation room, Fang Yuan didn't leave the Internal Affairs Hall immediately but went to request a branch mission. He was told that the affairs were busy recently and he should return in 3 days to receive it. Stepping out of the main gate of the Internal Affairs Hall, he gazed at the sky. It was just an ordinary winter afternoon. Except the winter sky was mournful, the wind was bone-chilling, and the atmosphere was heavy with sorrow. Today is a collective memorial service. Gu Yue Jinzhu is dead. Fang Yuan, did you know? Mo Bei and a group of teenagers passing by stopped. Besides Mo Bei, there were also Fang Zheng and Qi Cheng. Mo Bei and Qi Cheng usually didn't get along, but today, they seemed to have forgotten their animosity and were together. "Brother, Jinzhu studied and lived with us for a year. Come with us," Fang Zheng said. Gu Yue Jinzhu. An image of a young girl immediately flashed through Fang Yuan's mind. That girl had once fought Mo Bei to a draw in the arena, but later lost due to insufficient stamina. She was truly a hard-working and resilient girl. However, in the face of death, whether good or bad, everything is treated equally. Most people would mourn, but in Fang Yuan's eyes, it was all too normal. Ah, so he's dead, but birth, aging, sickness, and death are common occurrences in human life. Seeing them so often will fade the memory. "You all go, I'm busy." Fang Yuan walked past everyone. Quote, "That bastard." Many young men were angry and indignant. He's truly cold-blooded and heartless. He completely disregards the feelings of his classmates. Recently, rumors have spread throughout the clan. You must have heard about it. The reason Fang Yuan was lucky enough to survive is because he hid inside a wild boar's belly and then used a female Gu master as a shield. How shameful. He has no manly demeanor at all. Qi Cheng crossed his arms and sneered. "Brother." Fang Zheng lowered his head and gritted his teeth. Hearing such gossip, as Fang Yuan's younger brother, he felt deeply ashamed. As Fang Yuan left, the mocking and ridicule behind him grew fainter and fainter, gradually becoming inaudible. His heart was completely calm. "What if you insult me even more? Go ahead and scold me. But what then?" Shallow-minded people are often enraged by insults and delighted by praise. But in reality, these are merely the opinions of others. Those who live for the opinions of others are destined to be pitiable. In fact, through the praise of a few well-meaning people, Fang Yuan's reputation has already rotted. Sacrificing his female companion to protect himself. Such an act, while not punishable, will be condemned by public opinion. But this is also the situation Fang Yuan wants to create. Entering the system means becoming a pawn, unable to act according to the system's will. For Fang Yuan, this is very cumbersome. He needs resources. And even more so, he needs to act alone. Therefore, he wants to become a loner. What if he is ostracized by everyone? Ha ha, only those with weak hearts fear being ostracized. On Earth, anyone in this situation would surely die. After all, 2 fists can't fight 4 hands, and human relationships are the protective shield for survival. Asterisk, 2 fists can't fight 4 hands, meaning one person can't fight against a large group. However, in this world, as long as one's cultivation is strong, one person can fight against 10, 100, or even 10,000 people. Opposition, obstacles, kill them directly. Lack of resources, take them by force. Each world has different rules, which determine differences in social structures and create differences in human behavior. The more powerful a world becomes in terms of military force, the weaker the concept of collectivism. Therefore, in this world, demons run rampant. Chapter 98: The difficulty of practicing ancient techniques. What? That brat is now a second-rank Gu master, and he's even asking the Internal Affairs Hall for a family division mission. The astonished and angry voice of Gu Yue Dongtu's uncle echoed through the reception room. That's true, although I've accepted your spirit stones. I couldn't stop him. I could only tell him to come back in 3 days to receive the mission. Helping you delay it for so many days is the most I can do. The middle-aged male Gu master sitting beside him said. Gu Yue Dongtu snorted coldly in his heart. He understood the meaning of this Gu master from the Internal Affairs Hall. What? Delaying it for 3 days is the most I can do? Such words were just an attempt to swindle him out of money. But the most urgent matter now is to do everything possible to preserve the family fortune. This brat really won't let anyone have peace. Gu Yue Dongtu's forehead was covered in cold sweat. Fang Yuan's rapid development terrified him. I only came to inform you. Farewell. The middle-aged male Gu master stood up to leave. Don't leave so quickly, brother. There are a few things I'd like to ask you to help with. Gu Yue Dongtu also hurriedly stood up, stuffing a bag of money into the male Gu master's hand. The male Gu master stuffed the bag full of spirit stones into his chest, changing his tone to a loud laugh and saying, Brother Dongtu, you're too polite. What kind of relationship do we have? We've known each other for over 10 years. Rest assured, I'll prepare the most difficult task for Fang Yuan. However, I'm afraid Fang Yuan will hire other Gu masters. You must be careful about that. Ha ha ha, don't worry about this. Although I've retired, my network of connections is still there. I've already hired people to keep an eye on him. If this brat hires outsiders, it's a violation of clan rules. And I'm worried I won't be able to find his weakness. Ha ha. Then I'm relieved. Farewell. I'll see you off. No need. Please stop. Gu Yue Dongtu watched the Gu master's retreating figure, the smile on his face slowly fading. This Fang Yuan is clearly only a B-rank cultivator. Why did he advance to the second rank so quickly? Damn it, what kind of trick are those Jiao San guys playing? They couldn't even keep a living person like him safe. Now that all 4 of the 3 awakenings are dead in the beast tide, there's really nothing left. Fang Yuan has even advanced to the second rank, so he'll definitely be able to get the inheritance quest. The methods that restricted him before can no longer be used. But now he's alone, and it will be very difficult for him to complete the inheritance quest by himself. That's not right. This kid's luck is a bit too bizarre. Just when we asked the others to stop him, a beast tide appeared. What if he relies on luck to complete the mission again? I have to prepare for the worst-case scenario. The older the ginger, the spicier it is. Gu Yue Dongtu's ability to survive until now without incident is a testament to his own success. Compared to Fang Yuan, who is just starting out, his social connections are far stronger. Collect honey wine. Fang Yuan accepted this inheritance mission, his eyes flashing coldly. This mission is very troublesome. He has to collect 5 ounces of honey wine from golden bees. Each golden bee is the size of a fist, with a striking black and gold body, sharp stingers, and a very strong offensive capability. And that's not all. Ordinary bee colonies only produce honey. Only large to medium-sized beehives accumulate a lot of honey, enough to brew the more valuable honey wine. This task, even with a 5-person team, is incredibly difficult. Having too many people is useless. A Gu master collecting honey wine needs defensive Gu worms to withstand the attacks of the golden bees. It seems my uncle is secretly pulling the strings from behind, trying to exploit my weakness of lacking defensive Gu worms. Unfortunately, he miscalculated. Fang Yuan chuckled coldly to himself. Now, the benefits of concealing the treasures of the winemaking practitioner were evident. Underhanded tactics are easy to pull off, while straightforward ones are difficult to achieve. The more open and honest one acts, the easier it is to see through and stop them. Conversely, acting secretly, hiding trump cards, and keeping people unaware of the situation prevents them from prescribing the right medicine. However, I want to collect honey wine. And relying solely on the jade skin goo isn't enough. The jade skin goo is only a first-rank goo worm. If I could upgrade it to a second-rank white jade goo, I believe this would be as easy as pie. There was absolutely no need for risky experimentation. Fang Yuan's rich life experience allowed him to avoid unnecessary detours. Moreover, Fang Yuan was now a second-rank early-stage goo master, but the goo worms he possessed, except for the spring-autumn cicada, were all first-rank goo worms. This situation was like a burly man who could wield a large guang saber but had to carry a delicate dagger. The dagger couldn't fully unleash the burly man's fighting power. Only crafting a large guang saber would be most effective. Fang Yuan possessed 7 goo worms, his life bound goo, the spring-autumn cicada, the moonlight goo, the wine worm, the white silk goo, the jade skin goo, and 2 small light goo. Among them, the moonlight goo and the 2 small light goo could be combined to form a second-rank moonlight goo, while the white silk goo and the jade skin goo could be combined to form the white jade goo. The moon radiance goo represents an increase in offensive power, while the white jade goo enhances defensive capabilities. If Fang Yuan had enough raw materials, he would have refined both. However, not long ago, he spent most of his raw materials on refining them to advance his cultivation to the second stage. Today, he only has enough for one attempt. Without a doubt, choosing to refine the white jade goo is the wiser choice. With the white jade goo, I can collect honey wine, and it also helps with the inheritance of the flower wine practitioner. But if this refining fails, the consequences will be dire. My economic situation is on the verge of collapse. Without the white jade goo, I will have no way to inherit the legacy. Once I get stuck at this stage, it will greatly hinder my development. Fang Yuan felt a vague pressure. He knew he had reached a crucial moment. If the refining was successful, his future would undoubtedly be bright. If he fails, it will be like falling into an abyss. To climb to his current position, he needs to work hard in business, and it will take much longer. Quote, a goo master uses his own primordial sea as a foundation and goo worms as a means. Goo worms are essential for a goo master. Without them, one cannot speak of being a goo master. Besides his own cultivation, a goo master must also cultivate, nurture, and use goo worms. In the room, Clan Chief Gu Yuebo meticulously explained to Fang Zheng. Cultivation, nurturing, and use, these 3 aspects are all vast and profound knowledge. Even a lifetime wouldn't be enough to explore them all. In the cultivation aspect, you already know how to cultivate a goo worm and how to use it. But those are just individual cultivation. Beyond individual cultivation, there is something even more important: combined cultivation. Through fusion, you can merge many different types of goo worms into a single, higher-level goo worm. This is the evolution and sublimation of life. Fang Zheng, you are already a second-rank goo worm, but the goo worm in your hand is only a first rank. You should fuse a second-rank goo worm. Fang Zheng then asked, Clan leader, how should I fuse them? Gu Yuebo said, to fuse them, you must know the secret methods. Some goo worms cannot be fused together. Through countless years of development and accumulation, through continuous practice and countless failures, our ancestors have compiled many secret methods. Our Gu Yue clan has the deepest research into moonlight goo, and to date, we possess 2 5th-rank secret methods. What are the 5th-rank secret methods? That means, by following this secret method and continuously practicing, you can eventually cultivate a 5-transformation goo worm. Fang Zheng, you have a jade skin goo and a moonlight goo in your hands, both corresponding to a 5-transformation secret method. If you follow this method, you will eventually cultivate a 5-transformation goo worm. The Treasure Moonlight King Goo. Treasure Moonlight King Goo. Fang Zheng seemed expectant. Ha ha ha. It's too early to tell you about 5 transformation goo worms. Now, take out the jade skin goo and the moonlight goo, and I'll guide you on how to cultivate these 2 goo worms into a 2 transformation goo worm. The moonlight rainbow robe goo. At this point, Gu Yuebo's expression turned serious. The most important thing in cultivating goo worms is to focus on multiple tasks simultaneously, and to integrate consciousness. The wild consciousness of the moonlight goo and jade skin goo in your hands is gone. It has been replaced by your consciousness. Now, what you must do is integrate these 2 streams of consciousness into one. One mind. Multiple minds, able to handle many different tasks at the same time. Fusion into one. Fang Zheng blinked, his expression very confused. Gu Yuebo smiled. Don't worry. With practice you'll be able to grasp this feeling. Let's begin. Yes, Fang Zheng nodded. Under Gu Yuebo's guidance, the pale red true essence rose like mist, lifting the jade skin goo and the moonlight goo into the air. Fang Zheng closed his eyes and began to sense and manipulate the consciousness of these 2 goo insects. Gu Yuebo, outside, also paid close attention, watching the jade skin goo and moonlight goo rotate around each other like 2 bright stars. Their consciousnesses merged more and more, and the distance between the 2 goo insects narrowed. After 3 hours of continuous experimentation, the consciousness within their bodies was finally manipulated by Fang Zheng, completely merging together. Immediately, both the jade skin goo and the moonlight goo erupted with dazzling white light. The 2 patches of light merged, soon forming a large halo the size of a washbasin. Maintain your current state, then throw the raw stone into the halo. Gu Yuebo instructed. Fang Zheng immediately took out a raw stone and placed it into the halo. Strangely enough, after the raw stone entered, it transformed into a stream of pure natural essence, completely dissolving into the halo, leaving only a few white specks of dust falling onto the bedsheet. Continue throwing until you have refined the goo into a second stage goo. Gu Yuebo said. Fang Zheng threw out a second stone. But at this moment, the white light suddenly disappeared. The 2 parasitic worms seemed to be forcefully pushed away by their opponent, flying in opposite directions. The fusion failed. Oh no, I forgot to maintain the fusion of consciousness just now. Fang Zheng quickly realized his mistake. Don't worry, failing a few times is perfectly normal. Gu Yuebo comforted Fang Zheng, then reminded him, but you must be careful not to fail too many times. Otherwise, the moonlight goo and jade skin goo will dissipate. Fang Zheng summoned the jade skin goo and moonlight goo, and indeed found tiny cracks appearing on the surface of the moonlight goo, while the jade skin goo seemed somewhat listless. A heavy feeling suddenly weighed on his heart. Only now did he truly understand the difficulty of refining goo. Chapter 99. Being Human. Not Being a God. Rumbling. In the sea of primordial essence, waves surged and receded. Looking around, a pale red color appeared. This was no longer the bronze sea of the past, but a sea of crimson iron. The 4 walls of the void were a dazzling silver membrane, the scene of the initial stage of the second transformation. The entire crimson iron sea of primordial essence occupied 4/10 of the 4 voids. And in the air above the sea's surface, the spring and autumn cicada manifested. After nearly a year of deep slumber and recuperation, it had begun to flourish. Its body, previously devoid of any shine, rough and dull like a rotten piece of wood, now had a slight sheen. Its wings, which had previously resembled withered leaves in the autumn wind, with many missing edges, now displayed a few fresh green dots, and the edges of its wings seemed to have been redrawn with a black outline forming a complete arc, without any imperfections. Spring and autumn cicada, spring and autumn. So that's how it is. To restore it, it must go through spring and autumn. A year had passed since his resurrection, a full cycle of spring and autumn, so it had already recovered. Fang Yuan stared at the spring and autumn cicada, his thoughts suddenly enlightened, his understanding of it deepening. Goo masters cultivate goo, raise goo, use goo. The use within these is diverse, encompassing thousands and tens of thousands of things. Fang Yuan spent his days and nights with the spring and autumn cicada, his understanding of it gradually accumulating and deepening. But the spring and autumn cicada is still very weak, only having crawled a few steps forward from the abyss of death. I can use its aura to suppress goo worms, enhancing the effectiveness of single cultivation, but it's of no help in combined goo worm cultivation. Other miraculous goo worms enhance the success rate of combined cultivation, and there are specialized techniques for each skill. The spring and autumn cicada only has the ability to revive. Specialization in various professions. Every profession or job has a specific area of expertise. Besides the spring and autumn cicada, on the surface of the sea, there was also the plump wineworm curled up, swimming and frolicking in the seawater. The white silk goo resembled a ladybug flying around, and the jade skin goo looked like a piece of jade. Fang Yuan opened his eyes and slowly opened his hand. In his right hand was the imprint of a crescent moon and 2 5-pointed stars. This was the moonlight goo and the 2 little light goo living on his hand. Fang Yuan sat cross-legged on the bed, his gaze fixed ahead. In front of him were 3 money bags, 2 bulging, 1 half deflated. There was also a wild boar king's tusk, exactly like an elephant's tusk, lying silently beside Fang Yuan's feet. After exhausting all their strength to kill the wild boar king, the snake plague team was attacked by a pack of electric wolves. Most of the wild boar king's flesh had been gnawed away by the wolves, leaving only 2 snow-white tusks as the most valuable spoils of war. According to clan rules, as a member who killed the wild boar king, Fang Yuan was entitled to one of its tusks for free. Fang Yuan looked at the items before him, his expression serious. My primeval stones are running low. Only enough for 1 more refining attempt. After this refining attempt, regardless of success or failure, my finances will be ruined. However, if I delay the refining, in less than 10 days, my primeval stones will continue to be depleted, and I won't even have another chance to refine. Fang Yuan raised 7 goo worms, a heavy financial burden, and because of his B-type aptitude, he had to use wineworms many times to accelerate his cultivation. Therefore, his consumption of primal stones was higher than that of ordinary people. Recently, he also stopped using primal stones to rapidly replenish the true essence in his apertures. The sea of crimson iron within him was now the result of his own self-restoration. Fang Yuan had begun to scrimp and save on living expenses, no longer able to recklessly use primal stones. His current situation was equivalent to him being on the verge of falling off a cliff, relying on a clump of weeds in his hand to temporarily keep himself afloat. However, as time passed, the weeds in his hand kept breaking, and if he didn't make any desperate efforts, he wouldn't be able to hold on much longer and would fall. What he had to do now was to take advantage of the weeds he still had and use them to climb the cliff. If he succeeded, he could seize the inheritance, climb another rung of the ladder, and turn a new page in his life. If he failed, he would fall, and to climb back up to this level, he would have to expend a large amount of time and effort again. No matter what, let's begin. Fang Yuan took a deep breath, his eyes calming down. White silk goo, jade skin goo. The 2 goo worms, following his will, emerged from his aperture and hovered before him. Fusion, Fang Yuan silently shouted. The white silk goo and jade skin goo immediately burst forth with dazzling light, colliding head-on. The collision was silent, transforming into a white halo of light. The white light became even more dazzling than before. This meant that Fang Yuan's 2 streams of consciousness were merging. Fang Yuan used his own consciousness to maintain the white halo of light while simultaneously taking out spirit stones from his bag and throwing them one by one into the halo. The halo swallowed the raw stone, leaving only a cloud of dust falling onto the bed. Each time it swallowed a piece, the halo expanded a little more. It absorbed the natural essence and grew larger and larger. From its initial size, about the size of a washbasin, it gradually transformed into the size of a mortar. It's time. Fang Yuan narrowed his eyes, grabbed the king boar's tusk, and decisively threw it into the halo. If anyone else saw this, they would probably be shocked. That's because everyone knew the secret formula for combining white silk goo and jade skin goo into white jade goo had been passed down for over 1,000 years. But they had never heard of adding a king boar's tusk. However, just because it wasn't there before doesn't mean it won't be. 150 years from now, a goo master would improve this secret formula. He discovered that simply adding a king boar's tusk could greatly increase the success rate of the fusion. Fang Yuan, having been reborn 500 years earlier, naturally knew this secret. The white fang entered the halo of light, and a miraculous transformation immediately occurred. The dazzling white light suddenly softened. Previously, it had always shone brightly, but now it seemed to move in a wave-like motion, alternating between light and darkness, a naturally miraculous phenomenon. Under Fang Yuan's watchful gaze, the halo of light slowly contracted, finally completely dissipating into the air. The jade skin goo and the white silk goo were gone, leaving only a completely new goo worm silently floating before Fang Yuan. It resembled a pebble, entirely white, but this white wasn't the pale white of paper, nor the creamy white of milk, but a smooth, lustrous white like jade. This was a second-turn white jade goo. Only then did Fang Yuan breathe a sigh of relief. The heavy burden in his heart finally lifted. Don't be fooled by its seemingly simple nature. It's actually quite the opposite. First, to achieve the fusion of consciousness, he must master the art of multitasking. A normal person can draw a circle with one hand and a square with the other. That's multitasking. Many people struggle with this, let alone multitasking, which is even more difficult. This requires countless accumulated experiences, arduous cultivation, countless failures and setbacks, and a certain level of talent. Fang Yuan's mastery of this skill is entirely due to his 500 years of accumulated experience. There's no room for deception. The phrase, Xing Che Lu Shu, literally means familiarity with the task, implying that something becomes familiar and easy after repeated practice. Secondly, it's about understanding and awareness of goo worms. The deeper a goo master's understanding of goo worms, the greater the chance of success in the fusion process. This is an accurate understanding that only became widely accepted about 300 years later. Therefore, the longer a goo worm is used, the greater the probability of successful fusion. Thirdly, it's about precise and unique secret methods. For example, this time, adding the white fangs, like adding the finishing touch to a dragon, can instantly increase the success rate by 2/3. The effect is truly extraordinary. Some secret methods are widely circulated throughout the world, but many others are carefully hidden and not passed on. For example, the moonlight goo of the Gu Yue mountain village. The secret method for its creation is only held by a few elders and successive clan leaders. Especially secret methods that can reach the fifth transformation and beyond are kept secret by goo masters. Cherished like their lives, many goo masters would never pass on their knowledge until their death. But even with these three things, it's impossible to achieve absolute success. Even someone like Fang Yuan, with memories of 500 years from his previous life, incredibly rich experience, profound understanding of goo worms, the ability to multitask, and knowledge of many secret methods, could still fail when refining goo worms. It can only be said that his failure rate is relatively low. Refining goo worms is almost a sublimation, a creation of life. It compresses time to the extreme, causing a very long evolutionary process to blossom and bear fruit in an instant. On Earth, only gods can do this. Without a doubt, this is a miracle of life. Gu masters using mortal bodies to perform miracles. How could they succeed every time? If they succeeded every time, then they wouldn't be humans, but gods. Miracles, traces of gods. Miracles that only gods can perform. Chapter 100, Ancient White Jade. More than 10 days passed in the blink of an eye. Deep within the mountains, in the underground rocky forest, a dozen or so jade-eyed stone monkeys flickered. Vaguely they continuously leaped and launched fierce attacks towards Fang Yuan. Previously, Fang Yuan would have retreated without hesitation, but now he stood his ground, his expression cold and unwavering. The monkeys' blows, scratches, and bites on Fang Yuan's body produced a clanging sound, as if they weren't attacking a person but a solid pillar of jade. A faint layer of white jade light clung to Fang Yuan's entire body. Although this light was thinner than the green jade light of the jade skin Gu, its defensive power was more than twice as strong. The jade skin Gu's defense could only withstand 16 monkeys attacking simultaneously. But now Fang Yuan alone could face more than 30 monkeys on the arena. I was able to break through Fang Zheng's jade skin Gu defense. But if Fang Zheng uses this white jade Gu, even if I broke my arm, I wouldn't be able to break through that defense, Fang Yuan thought to himself, while also diverting a stream of spiritual energy to focus on the primordial sea in his aperture in the crimson iron sea of true essence. The white jade Gu sank to the bottom, absorbing true essence, its surface emitting a faint white jade light, like a light bulb every time the monkeys attacked Fang Yuan. The surface of this pebble-like white jade Gu would also slightly flash at the same time. Fang Yuan felt his true essence consumption increase slightly. The defense of the white jade Gu is similar to the jade skin Gu. It both require continuous infusion of true essence. Moreover, the more attacks it endures, the stronger the true essence consumption. Fang Yuan summarized in his heart at the same time. He suddenly launched a counterattack, punches and kicks, swirling dust. His moves were simple yet ruthless. His postures sharp and precise. Although the white monkey Gu had disappeared, the power it bestowed upon Fang Yuan remained within his body. Fang Yuan continuously struck the monkeys. Some were sent flying, crashing into stone pillars, while others were instantly killed in midair, their bodies shattering into pieces as they fell to the ground. Furthermore, as Fang Yuan swung his arm, crescent moon blades flew out in fragments, like scythes of death, reaping the lives of the monkeys under the impetus of the crimson iron true essence. Each strike of the first-rank Moonlight Gu inflicted maximum damage on the monkeys. Crackling sounds. The monkeys shrieked in terror, retreating incessantly. Fang Yuan only counterattacked for a moment, but most of them were annihilated, leaving only 5 or 6. Fang Yuan killed another one, and finally, the remaining monkeys collapsed in terror, scattering and fleeing deep into the rocky forest. Fang Yuan didn't pursue these defeated remnants but continued forward, penetrating deeper into the heart of the rocky forest. For the past few days, he had been trying to find clues to the next step of the inheritance. Through his relentless search, he had explored the outer perimeter of the rocky forest without any discovery. Fang Yuan vaguely understood the intentions of the Huaju practitioner. He believed that the next clue was most likely placed in the center of this rocky forest by the Huaju practitioner. The deeper he went into the rocky forest, the larger the stone pillars became, and the more monkeys lived within. Fang Yuan walked and looked into the distance. In the center of the rocky forest stood a massive stone pillar, so large that even more than 10 adults holding hands couldn't encircle it completely. This stone pillar was his next target. However, the deeper he penetrated, the larger the monkey troop became, and the difficulty naturally increased. Fang Yuan took a crucial step, stepping into the monkey's encirclement. Crackling sounds. An enraged jade-eyed stone monkey immediately emerged from each black hole on the pillar, with over 100 of them simultaneously lunging towards Fang Yuan. Fang Yuan turned and fled. Facing so many monkeys attacking at once, Even with the white jade goo, he couldn't withstand it. The monkeys chased Fang Yuan for a while, then one by one, some gave up and returned. Gradually, only about 30 monkeys remained. Fang Yuan saw that the time was ripe and turned to fight. After a fierce battle, only a few monkeys were left, frantically fleeing, not even daring to return to their original stoneholes. After several such instances, Fang Yuan slaughtered over 100 monkeys, and along the way, he could see rocks shattered by the monkeys everywhere. My true essence is insufficient. Fang Yuan glanced at his essence, sighed, and had to stop. Previously, he would have used essence stones to quickly replenish it. However, since refining the white jade goo, he had a severe shortage of essence stones. His finances were completely ruined. Fang Yuan picked up the scattered jade eyeballs on the ground and put them into his bag. It should be right under the central stone pillar. But to get there, I have to clear a path. This feeling grew stronger and stronger. Finally, Fang Yuan looked again, opened the stone door, and returned to the second secret chamber. In the corner of the secret chamber, a pile of miscellaneous items lay scattered. Among them was a burlap bag containing several hundred eyeball gems. Fang Yuan opened it and poured all the gems he had harvested that day into it. The gems clinked together, producing a clear, resonant sound. There was another burlap bag containing wild boar tusks. But Fang Yuan no longer needed to hunt wild boars. He had successfully refined the white jade goo with the white silk goo and the jade skin goo, and the white silk goo had disappeared, reducing his need for pork to zero. This newly born white jade goo was more inclined towards the jade skin goo, and its food was also jade stones. Every 10 days, the jade skin goo needed to consume 2 ounces of jade stones, while the white jade goo needed 8 ounces of jade stones every 20 days. Generally, the higher the level of the goo worm, the longer the time between food absorptions. Most second-stage goo worms take more than half a month, while third-stage goo worms take more than a month. Of course, the higher the level of the goo worm, the greater its appetite. On average, the cost of raising the white jade goo is more than that of the jade skin goo and the white silk goo combined. However, for Fang Yuan, with this underground stone forest, he had no shortage of jade stones. Moreover, he didn't need pork, he didn't have to slaughter wild boars anymore, which saved him a lot of trouble and time. Wrapping the mouth of the small burlap sack shut, Fang Yuan picked up the buffalo hide water pouch beside him. The pouch was bulging, filled with golden honey wine. For several days now, Fang Yuan had used the jade skin goo to fend off the golden bees' attacks, and then collected enough honey wine from the beehives. I only have 2.5 blocks of Yuan stone left. It's time to go to the Internal Affairs Hall to hand over the mission and return the family assets. Fang Yuan put the buffalo hide water pouch into his chest, then returned to the underground tunnel, emerged from the rock crevice, and came back outside. It was now twilight. On a clear winter evening, the weather was pleasant, without any hint of cold. The setting sun cast a warm, reddish-orange hue, its thin rays piercing through the pine trees and illuminating the hills. He walked alone towards the mountain stronghold. However, Fang Yuan didn't go straight ahead, deliberately taking a detour to reduce the chances of his cave in the rocky crevice being discovered. The east wind blew against his face, carrying the scent of freedom. Previously, while still in the academy, he could only sneak in at night, but now that Fang Yuan had advanced to the second rank, his daytime movements were unremarkable. Of course, this was mainly because the 4 members of the Plague Snake clan were dead, leaving Fang Yuan alone and free from some constraints. The only challenge was that Fang Yuan was currently alone, without any supporting team members. He would have to complete the family's mission at least once a month, making things even more difficult. Now, after the small beast tide, the re-establishment of the small teams was complete, and Fang Yuan had missed his opportunity. Furthermore, Because of his reputation, Fang Yuan had been subtly ostracized by other Gu masters. Joining another team wouldn't be easy. Let them ostracize me. The more freedom I have outside, the less attention I receive. And the better. As for the monthly family mission, it's mandatory, so I'll naturally accept it. But, thinking this, Fang Yuan's eyes flashed with a cold glint. He had already planned this. The family mandated that Gu masters accept at least one mission each month, but didn't require them to complete it. Failure to complete the mission would lower their evaluation. This was something almost no Gu master wanted to see, so they all exerted their utmost efforts to complete it. But to Fang Yuan, what did this so-called evaluation matter? Stepping into the mountain village. The road paved with blue stones was bustling with people. Usually, this was the peak time for crowds. Gu masters who had completed their tasks returned to the mountain village, their bodies covered in mud and dirt. Farmers, having worked all day, their feet muddy, trudged along silently. In this world, human life is not easy, filled with bitterness and suffering. The setting sun cast its gentle rays on the mountaintop. Then these rays were torn apart by the intertwined dry branches, transforming into fragments of time, falling onto the walls of the jade-green bamboo pavilion. "Ah, my toy!" In the crowd, a little girl cried out, chasing after a spinning top. The spinning top rolled right to Fang Yuan's feet, and the little girl bumped into his leg, falling to the ground. "I'm so sorry, I bumped into the Gu master. Please forgive me." The girl's father rushed over, his face turning ashen upon seeing Fang Yuan's attire. He pulled the little girl down to her knees, repeatedly bowing to Fang Yuan. The child was so frightened she cried, tears streaming down her pale face. Ordinary people on the street avoided the scene, moving aside. A few Gu masters glanced coldly before quickly averting their eyes. "Stop crying, you troublemaker." The father, both frightened and angry, swung his hand to slap her, but Fang Yuan caught his hand, rendering her immobile. "It's just a small matter. No need to worry." Fang Yuan smiled faintly, reaching out to pat the little girl's head, gently comforting her. "Don't be afraid, nothing will happen." The little girl stopped sobbing, her teary eyes looking up at Fang Yuan, thinking that this older brother before her was truly gentle. "Thank you for your leniency. Thank you for your leniency." The little girl's father was overjoyed, tears streaming down his face, repeatedly bowing to Fang Yuan. Fang Yuan continued walking. The room he rented was not far away. And beneath that bamboo pavilion, Gu Yue Dongtu was standing, watching Fang Yuan from afar, obviously waiting for him. You have just finished watching an episode 10 of the Reverend Insanity series on the Midnight Story Bureau YouTube channel. Please share your feedback in the comments section, and don't forget to like and subscribe to help motivate me to create videos.